Look at this beauty. Look at this beautiful find. This is the first issue of the original Marvel Comics run of Star Wars from 1977. Absolutely fantastic. And it's a holographic edition. You can see the shine in the cover, especially in the logo with Luke. Luke with a red saber, how about that? You can see the Star Wars text is silver, not white. Oh, this is gorgeous. Just wanted to take a quick moment to show you the two covers for original Marvel Star Wars issue number 1. On the left, we have the non-holographic cover. The logo text is white. This is the way it looked in 1977. And on the right, we have the beautiful chrome holographic edition. The logo text is silver. You can see my reflection. So I've got this exquisite holographic reprint of the first edition of the original Marvel Star Wars from the 1970s. And there are a couple of indicators here that this is early Star Wars before it was really fleshed out. One of them is we see Luke in the Marvel logo has a red lightsaber, which, later on we'll know that that's a no-no for a good Jedi. We see Stan Lee and Roy Thomas, Marvel greats. We see the Star Wars logo, not quite looking like the Star Wars logo. And we've got text very similar to the blue scroll from the movie, but it does not take on the black space and blue scroll that most Star Wars comic books will later have. Last thing, Luke really looks like Flash Gordon. There's a really fun Easter egg in the first issue of the original Marvel Star Wars from 1977. So we have the space battle above Tatooine. The Star Destroyer is latched onto the Tantive 4. The Imperial Stormtroopers have just opened the door and busted into the smaller ship. And then we zoom down to a scene on Tatooine. Luke Skywalker is using his macro binoculars. He's out riding his land speeder. A bright sparkle in the morning sky catches a watchful eye. Then he leaps nimbly into the nearby recently repaired land speeder and aims the craft toward the distant town of Anchorhead. Then he goes to the Circle K in Anchorhead where he tells Biggs about the space battle, and Biggs says, "I don't see anything, they're just two ships sitting there." The original Marvel Comics Star Wars from 1977 is quite a trip. This title series starts off with the comic adaptation of A New Hope, and it is classic Star Wars, but it has its own vibes. We've got 3PO and R2 wandering through the deserts of Tatooine. I really appreciate how they have their own distinct fonts and word bubbles to denote their droid voices. I like how this summarizes that scene. There's a whole scene that takes a couple of minutes, and they summarize it in one page. And Vader has regular speech bubbles. He doesn't have formatted speech bubbles like later versions, 4 or 5 decades later. Then we have another deleted scene with more dialogue between Luke and Biggs that was in the novel but was not in the final cut of the movie. If you haven't already listened to it, check out the Rangers of the Old Republic podcast on this channel. The original Marvel Comics Star Wars from 1977 is quite a trip. This title series starts off with the comic adaptation of A New Hope, and it is classic Star Wars, but it has its own vibes. We've got 3PO and R2 wandering through the deserts of Tatooine. I really appreciate how they have their own distinct fonts and word bubbles to denote their droid voices. I like how this summarizes that scene. There's a whole scene that takes a couple of minutes, and they summarize it in one page. And Vader has regular speech bubbles. He doesn't have formatted speech bubbles like later versions, 4 or 5 decades later. Then we have another deleted scene with more dialogue between Luke and Biggs that was in the novel but was not in the final cut of the movie. This is the first issue of the original Marvel Comics run of Star Wars from 1977. This is interesting. In the conference room scene with the governors, It's a totally different guy mouthing off to Vader and getting force choked. Here we've got Owen and Luke picking the droids. And this scene hits way harder after reading A New Hope from a certain point of view. Salute to you, Mr. Droid. One thing I especially love about the original Marvel Comics adaptation of the original Star Wars movie are the details in the comic book that are different from the A New Hope movie. We get introductory text, but we don't get the blue scroll going into black starry space like we will for future comic book adaptations of Star Wars movies. Then we have another deleted scene with more dialogue between Luke and Big. Scenes that take several minutes to play out on film are combined and summarized very creatively. In the comic version, it's a totally different guy who mouths off to Darth Vader and gets force choked. Aunt Beru has jet black hair and no face. The stormtrooper doesn't say, "Look, sir," he just says, "Droids." I love the 1977 Marvel Comics adaptation of Star Wars A New Hope. The very first issue starts with the space battle over Tatooine and Darth Vader capturing Princess Leia. I love that the comic book adaptation has deleted scenes that are not in the movie version. Issue number 1 ends with Luke getting attacked by Tusken Raiders. Then issue number 2 is going to start with Ben Kenobi rescuing him, and then them rescuing Princess Leia from the Death Star. And then issue number 3 is going to complete the film. It's really hard these days to get a graphic novel of the 1977 adaptation of A New Hope, but it's a lot easier to just get the 3 issues individually because Marvel is reprinting the whole series. We're looking at volume 3 of the Star Wars A New Hope manga from Dark Horse. And so far, it is fire. This was published in the 1990s in Japan, and then the artwork was flipped for the American version. Because it was the 90s, this was before manga was published in the US in its original right-to-left format. Here's our "A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away" text. And bam, there it is. Star Wars A New Hope, the manga. The very first page of Volume 3 gives us Vader saying he wants every part of the Millennium Falcon checked. He looks really cool, all shadowy like that. I love the way the Imperial Stormtroopers look. We all know that I'm a big fan of Stormtroopers and Clone Troopers in comic book format. I love how Han Solo looks like a Team Rocket dropout. And I do appreciate that manga Luke Skywalker looks like Goku with a 1970s bowl cut. Very appropriate. Manga Ben Kenobi looks like an absolute unit. And there he is making his goodbye. The Force will be with you. Always. I cannot get over how Chewbacca looks in the manga, but the Death Star interior looks really cool. There's Ben Kenobi sneaking around, being a total G unit, and then Darth Vader sensing him. And we jump forward to the big moment. We're in Leia's cell. She gets woken up. "I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. I'm here with Ben Kenobi." Then we have Tarkin privately conferring with Vader, and Vader knows Obi-Wan is here. I must face him alone. I'm absolutely loving the Star Wars mangas. Every one of them that I've read so far has been absolute dynamite, great artwork, great new way to enjoy these stories. Highly recommended. We'll look at some more of this one next week. Let's jump back into the Star Wars A New Hope manga from Dark Horse Comics. We're in the trash compactor. Here's the scene where Luke done got by the monster. This is interesting. Shut down all the trash compactors on the detention level turned into shut down all the garbage mashers on the detention level. Small detail change, but it's one of the reasons why I like experiencing Star Wars in these different retellings. There's Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi being an absolute ninja, shutting down the Death Star power. Now, this is a manga adaptation of the 1997 special edition, and there's a particular detail of the Stormtrooper shootout that I like the way they show it. In the original shootout, when Han goes chasing them down the hall, there are only a few Stormtroopers there waiting for him, just a squad. But in the special edition, there is a whole platoon of Stormtroopers waiting for them. And this is how they portray that whole platoon in the manga. So this is very specifically a special edition artwork adaptation. And I dig it. And then we have A Kiss for Luck. And then The Leap of Faith. It's time to get into the Obi-Wan versus Vader duel in the New Hope manga. Obi-Wan stops. There's Vader waiting for him with saber already drawn. And we get the famous line, "Now I am the master." I love how they drew Obi-Wan to look like a samurai. And I love the way Vader is drawn. You never fully see him. You just get this black mass. He looks fantastic. And I love the way this duel is intentionally drawn to look like a samurai duel in feudal Japan. Look at that. It's very intense. In my opinion, a little bit more intense even than in the movie. There's Vader looking like an absolute demon. Luke and Han and Leia show up with the droids. Obi-Wan Kenobi sees them and then lets himself go. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I loved experiencing the first ever Star Wars lightsaber duel in this particular way. What a treat. Well, look at this little gem. We've got Star Wars Infinities, A New Hope, #1. This is the first issue of the 4-issue A New Hope Infinities miniseries. There's a Star Wars Infinities for all 3 of the movies in the original trilogy. This is a Dark Horse Comics production, or as I like to call it, Dark Subject Matter Comics. And this is a hardcover edition made by Spotlight Books, specifically for libraries. And right off the bat, they're advertising, what if Luke Skywalker missed in his one shot at the Death Star? What would happen? This is a really cool piece of Star Wars Legends material and really difficult to find these days. Alright, Star Wars Infinities, A New Hope, issue #1. Let's take a look. So the first few pages of this comic summarize the events of Episode 4 as we know them. So there's the Tantive 4 getting attacked, Leia getting captured, Luke getting the lightsaber from Ben, and then all of them saying, oh, snaps, the Death Star, that's no moon. And this is cool. We see the Death Star actually being destroyed, and then the awards ceremony, as we see in the movie. But then, it's really explicit. Alright, so we've got Luke making the shot, but then it's still there. Wait a minute, why hasn't it? And then what's next is interesting. People do get annihilated, but not Leia, actually. Now, Han and Luke make it out of there, but not Leia. She gets captured. Okay, so we have Han Solo swooping in to get Darth Vader off of Luke's tails. He fires the missiles, they go into the shaft, but for some reason the Death Star does not blow up. The Imperials try to power up the Death Star, but Luke's blast did some damage, so they're not able to shoot the laser at full power. So there is some damage, but because the laser was weak, it did not blow up Yavin 4, it just did damage to the base. Finally, the Imperials get the Death Star back to proper order, but Leia has already been evacuated from Yavin, and she watches Yavin 4 get destroyed. Luke and Han escape the Imperials by fighting their way through an asteroid field. But Leia's ship got caught in a tractor beam, and she is imprisoned again, and Tarkin is still alive. Star Wars Infinities, A New Hope, Book 2, which explores the possibility, what would happen if the rebels lost the Battle of Yavin? So Luke, having just failed to destroy the Death Star, had to jettison his X-Wing. He's on the Falcon with Han. He is absolutely beside himself. Han could care less. He is a mercenary, but Luke is absolutely losing it, and their disagreement leads directly to fisticuffs. Luke draws a saber, Han draws his blaster, and the fight gets broken up by Obi-Wan's ghost, who tells Luke that he needs to go to Dagobah. Meanwhile, this is a beautiful illustration of the Death Star over Coruscant. Vader has brought Leia to meet the Emperor. She talks a lot of trash, but he's just amused, and he makes it clear, "We're not going to kill you. We have plans for you." Now this is where it gets interesting. Vader gives Leia Obi-Wan's lightsaber and invites her to strike him down. And of course she tries and he parries. And this is where Leia's Jedi training begins. Meanwhile, Luke, Han, and Chewie arrive on Dagobah. And they find Yoda much the same way Luke does in Episode 5. Although Han figures out immediately that the little green guy is the Jedi Master. And so Luke's Jedi training begins in the swamp, and one of his Jedi training tasks is to face his inner demons inside the dark side tree, much like The Empire Strikes Back. Since we are exploring comic book adaptations of Star Wars A New Hope, it's only appropriate that we look at the story Tatooine Sojourn, where Luke Skywalker has to go back to Tatooine. Now, one quick note, this story is called Tatooine Sojourn. It's from the Star Wars newspaper comic strip, and you notice the subtitle says, "From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker." We also know that the original Star Wars novel is also subtitled, "From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker." I think George Lucas's original idea was for A New Hope to be Star Wars, and for the whole saga to be The Adventures of Luke. So there is a space capsule that crash lands on Tatooine. The Jawas find it. They're super happy because not only does it have tech, but it has this particular dead animal that's a delicacy for them. Luke Skywalker is flying around in space, minding his own damn business, when the Rebel Alliance command gives him a mission to go to Tatooine. And he says, "Oh, hell no, I ain't going back there." Eventually they make it clear the Imperials are doing shenanigans down on Tatooine. He needs to go. He's in the Rebel Alliance. They're at war. Come on, man. So he goes down to Mos Eisley, and he is super surprised that the city has doubled in size. Now that the planet, Tatooine, has been considered a hotbed of rebellion because of things that happened in Episode 4, there is a full-time Imperial garrison there. And here we are, back in the Mos Eisley Cantina. And Luke is immediately remembering that time Ben Kenobi cut a dude's arm off. And the black and white dailies continue into the Sunday full color page. Luke is in the cantina, and all these memories are overcoming him. The bartender who says no droids, Han and Chewie, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru being murdered, Ben Kenobi cutting off Ponda Baba's arm, and the memories are too much, and he's distracted, and he doesn't see the assassin trying to take him out. Luckily, another woman has his back. Her name is Anduville, and she claims to be a rebel agent. We are still in the Mos Eisley Cantina when this woman tells Luke a story about a similar capsule crashing on her planet and unleashing biological warfare, and the disease killed everybody, and then shortly after, the Imperials showed up. Now this is too cool and too funny at the same time. In November of 1979, the year after the holiday special and the year before The Empire Strikes Back came out, the Star Wars newspaper comic strip ran a story, Princess Leia, Imperial Servant. Princess Leia's craft is getting chased by an Imperial Star Destroyer with Vader on it, and she's about to get got. So, decades before the holdover maneuver, Leia's rebel assistant, I'm guessing he's Alderaanian, Hume, knocks her unconscious, puts her in a escape pod, launches her out so she can live, and then he crashes their spacecraft into the TIE fighter, chasing and shooting at them. And then Leia crash lands on what is an Imperial penal colony or an Imperial labor colony. Leia's only option is to try to blend in with the local population. They're all workers. And she finds this obelisk memorial to Grand Moff Tarkin. And then Leia herself gets conscripted to be a personal servant to Grand Moff Tarkin's wife. Number one, I did not know Grand Moff Tarkin was married. Number two, I did not know his wife was Disney's Maleficent. But clearly, she is still pissed about that incident outside of Yavin 4. You know, boom boom. Well, Leia caps a whole bunch of stormtroopers, and she blows a bunch of stuff up, and oh look, how convenient. Han Solo shows up to rescue her, totally not knowing that she was in that party of people. And Leia gets Tarkin's wife in trouble with Vader. Dun dun dun! Star Wars Volume 2, Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon. This is Volume 2 of 2015 Marvel Star Wars, and it includes issues 8 through 12. This is the run that takes place between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. There's a really interesting subplot in this story where a woman shows up claiming to be Han Solo's wife, and there is huge drama between her and Leia. At some point, Luke Skywalker's lightsaber gets stolen, and that is the start of him getting into a major pickle. To his misfortune, Luke runs into a Hutt with a fetish for Jedi stuff. I really like the Game Master as a character, and there's some cool stuff here that's going to set us up, or set Luke up for events in Return of the Jedi. There's also a big fight between Chewbacca and Dengar, which will pop back up in events in War of the Bounty Hunters. And I'm not going to say how this happens, but this happens. Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon was good. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. You could find it as a standalone graphic novel in trade paperback form, or if you get the 2018 hardcover special edition of the Han Solo graphic novel. The first half is the Han Solo miniseries, it's only 5 issues, and the second half is Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon from 2015 Marvel Star Wars. The Han Solo miniseries is really, really good, and this 2018 hardcover edition that has 2 graphic novels in one is awesome. The 2 stories work very well together. Most of you have seen this before, but I wanted to take this opportunity since April is the A New Hope themed month for this channel and this podcast. This is my copy of issue number 1 of 1977 Marvel Star Wars. Obviously, it's the first part of the comic book adaptation of the A New Hope movie, which in 1977 was just Star Wars. And I am in love with the foil edition. I'm trying to show the shininess without my shadow blocking the light. But I wanted to share a memory real quick. When I was in 7th grade, I was 12 years old when I read 1977 Marvel Star Wars for the first time. And my reading class teacher, it was a standard class, by the way, everybody had to take it, it was not remedial. But my reading teacher was Mrs. Peasold. She was kind of a strict lady, but as long as you were on top of your game and you behaved yourself, she was super cool. And she had a stack of vintage comic books in her classroom that she would let students read like once or twice a week. And they included some issues of Marvel Star Wars. And she did not have any foil editions like this one, but what she had were the giant-sized editions. They were huge. And that was the first time I had read anything from the original run of Star Wars. And it was fantastic, and I don't know how many times I read and reread
those jumbo-sized A New Hope comic books in Mrs. Peasel's classroom, but that memory will always be a joy to me. And Mrs. Peasel, wherever you are, whether you're still with us or not, thank you. And thank you, kind viewer, for watching the content on this channel and for listening to the Rangers of the Old Republic podcast. Space Wizard and I really appreciate your support. This is the Star Wars War of the Bounty Hunters trade paperback from Marvel Comics. It contains the cornerstone issue for the whole event, plus the 5-issue War of the Bounty Hunters miniseries. This is the War of the Bounty Hunters companion trade paperback. It contains 4 one-shots that expand the War of the Bounty Hunters story. But those 10 issues are not all that there is. There are 24 other issues crossing over 4 other series that comprise War of the Bounty Hunters. And this 34-issue series tries to tell you what the hell was going on with Han Solo's body between being frozen in The Empire Strikes Back and unfrozen in Return of the Jedi. And the reason why we made the upcoming ROTOR War of the Bounty Hunters spoiler special coming out on May 4th on this channel is because most of the channels covering this story do focus on the 10 key issues, but they skip over the other 60% of content that makes War of the Bounty Hunters. The War of the Bounty Hunters spoiler special, May 4th on this channel.
They were published at different times, while Star Wars canon was in different states of development. The very first Star Wars sequel just continues the adventures of Luke Skywalker after destroying the Death Star, not knowing the truth about his father and his smoking hot sister. The next Star Wars sequel continued the Star Wars saga after Return of the Jedi with an exciting new villain. And the third original Star Wars sequel further clarified plot elements from the events between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. All of these have been decanonized and reclassified as Star Wars Legends, but as each of them was released, they were treated as official sequels to the continuing Skywalker saga.